today we have special guest Jenn Schwager. She graduated from San Diego State University and wrote this absolutely amazing book, Recalibration, How to Reset When Shit Hits the Fan, in 2021. So you were 22 when you finished publishing this?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's a big accomplishment. Honestly, at the time, I didn't view it as such.
Yeah.
I felt like I was just kind of doing a passion project, and that's what it seemed to me. But everyone else, their reaction was, they were proud, and I'm proud of it too. But at the time, I was just really stoked to get into doing something I really liked, because everything had been taken away with COVID, and there were so many uncertainties. So for me, it was just kind of therapeutic.
And as I was reading this book, I really, really enjoyed it, and I can tell that you like writing because it's so good.
Thank you.
And you even, I won't flip to it because I'm not going to find it. There's a part where you said that you fucking love writing.
Yeah.
And I wrote a little note. I was like, yeah, you're really good at it. I can tell.
Thank you.
Honestly, immediately when I started reading this, I felt really connected to you, because you went right into losing your brother at 10, and I lost my mom at 12.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So it was really cool to hear your perspective.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, I think it's interesting too, because we've known each other in like a more communal sense, like seeing each other here and there. So I really appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
And connecting, that's the whole purpose of why I wanted to share things so personal, you know?
Yeah, it really... it makes me so happy when people can be vulnerable and honest, because there's just a lot of people aren't willing to do that. They're not brave enough to be honest when a lot of people are hurting.
Yeah.
And what you're doing and what you've done is really powerful.
Thank you.
Doing this interview with you is something that I've wanted to do for so long, is read someone's book and have an interview. I was like, that's so cool. So when I picked up your book and started reading it, I was like, this book is amazing. I'm so grateful that I not only know you, but I get to read this. And there's even parts where you were talking about journaling.
Yeah.
And I started journaling when I was like 10 years old too.
Nice.
And I was like, whoa, I loved it. And then you talked about the Jonas Brothers. And I was like, I was obsessed with the Jonas Brothers.
It's very niche. I know not everyone's going to connect with that, but that was my experience. And I remember going home even for Christmas this past holiday season and just going through old notebooks and old diaries that I still have. It's just funny to see how my school of thought has kind of evolved and changed as I got older. It's just funny to look back on for me.
Do you think you'll write any more books?
So many people have asked that question, and I think my answer has always changed when I've been asked. And I think it's because when I finished this project, it spanned over such a long period of time, and it was a lot of fucking effort. I don't know if I can cuss. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
But it really, I mean, there's a cuss word in the title, so that's how I speak. It was a lot of fucking work, and honestly, it was a lot of personal money also invested too. That was a whole other situation, and I wasn't exactly, poised to be just throwing cash at projects at the time that I started this, because of just my circumstances being a recent graduate and everything happening with COVID. I hate to bring that up all the time, but it's truly what was happening for me. And so when I finished and I got over the finish line, so many people were like, okay, what's next? What are you going to write about next?
Yeah, right. And there has to be a next thing.
I hadn't even caught my breath. I didn't even get to really process what I just did. And it's not like I was on a bestsellers list. It's not like I really even marketed it a ton. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a second or later, but I just wanted to kind of bask in what I had just accomplished. And I wanted to just take a second, take a beat, and just focus on building my 9-to-5 career, getting into a better spot that I wanted to be in, and give people time to read it and kind of give their feedback in a way, because it was so close to my chest. Like, I was holding my cards so close to my chest during this whole revision process. I read it out loud during the editing phase 8 times to myself.
What? 8 times?
Yeah, that's what my editors said I had to do, and it was so much writing, and I was just revisiting it over and over and over again, to the point where I just kind of wanted to close it, let other people view it with a fresh pair of eyes and then pop in later. So my answer to publishing another book would be yes, down the road, but it has to come from inspiration. I don't want to just blab to blab. It's a big undertaking.
Yeah.
And the process itself was way more rewarding for me than actually holding it tangibly in my hand.
Yeah.
A lot of creators probably say that, but I really mean it. I mean, it was so cool to see it arrive in an Amazon package and to hold all of these books in my hands, to see it here. But
wow.
The process was definitely more rewarding. So I think down the line, when it comes to that point in time to write again, I want to be in a better position to share more meaningful stories. Hopefully I can be more vulnerable, and as I grow up even more, I'll have more things to talk about. But
yeah,
right now, I don't have anything to write about in particular. I shared what I wanted to share, so hopefully in the next couple of years I have some more stories to tell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're always growing and
Always.
experiencing.
It's so crazy how different I am even from just starting this whole process.
Yeah.
I used to joke too with my editors, like in 10 years time, I will look back and read this again and it'll be so foreign. It'll feel like it's someone else talking, because it is. You know, I change every day and we're always growing, like you said. So it's just kind of a cool memorabilia thing too.
Yeah. If people wanted to buy this book, can they find it on Amazon?
Yes.
Okay.
They can.
So we can market it now, and I can link it above, and you can check it out.
You can find it on Amazon, the paperback, and then there's a Kindle version as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So they can find it there.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about marketing?
The story with that is I almost kind of had a little bit of imposter syndrome. And I think that's something a lot of people experience, big or small. And I didn't feel a ton of support from the people around me. Of course, my core group of friends and people I was speaking to, I felt that initial spark of support when I started.
Yeah.
But it definitely waned. Only a few people were consistently asking me about it, and that meant a lot. I get it. It's not going to be people's top of mind thing, but if one of your close friends is, you know, bearing their heart and soul and working on this huge thing, and it's a huge piece of their life that they're putting out there, I guess my expectation is that I was going to be asked about it a little bit more, and just felt kind of uplifted. So when that didn't happen, I felt a little bit impostery, and I'm always so torn too with the social media thing, because I love to take breaks and not check anything. I'm a habitual temporary disabler of my Instagram too. I love that piece, just being able to step away. But then if you're going to market it, you have to be online. It's what the digital age is. And so I was really conflicted. And I just don't think I marketed it correctly in the beginning.
Do you think you could still market it now?
I think so. I think I would have to build some momentum again, and things like this is so great.
Yeah.
And I just love chatting with new people too and learning about them and their experiences. And I'm, like I was telling you earlier, so flattered when you reached out to ask. Like, that support means everything to me, even if it's just one person. But the momentum was on my side when I was writing. And I do think I could still make something out of it, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, I definitely own that piece. I saw other people in my cohort really going for it, and I felt like I definitely didn't gun it the way I was supposed to out of the gate with the marketing piece. Yeah. There's always potential though.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I feel like it's not too late.
Yeah.
And some books blow up later down the road too.
Yeah.
I think.
And it's such a funny thing. I really would love to be open and like the public domain with things like this, but I don't want to be in the public domain where people know all my business and they can just constantly comment on things. You know, it's such it's just such a push-pull thing for me.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, because with my YouTube channel,
Yeah.
it's all about being really vulnerable.
It is.
So like I'm just like putting myself out there.
It always is.
And there's been a lot of times where I'm like, is this too much? Should I kind of tone it back a little bit? You give people that opportunity to criticize you.
Always, yeah. And I mean, I like TikTok for all these recipes and skincare and all these funny videos, but I scroll and I see people just stitching videos or commenting on other people. These influencers blow up and there's so many pros. I mean, they can make a living out of their passion, but you are exposed. You are out there, and I just value privacy in that way. And you know, who's to say there's no formula to like what goes viral or what blows up. Yeah. So in the event that it would, you know, that notoriety, it's a good and bad thing for me. Yeah, it's hard. You gotta pick and choose, I guess.
Is there anything in this book that you would rewrite today?
Such a good question. Yes. I think the things about my family I might rewrite. I think I might get a little deeper about some of those things, but at the same time, none of them signed up to be written about. So I had to tread lightly with what I could share from my personal experience compared to them and the collective that my family is. And I really would love to dig into that, but I just had to respect the boundaries that were there. I also think, too, I touch on some of the experiences I had as a girl and confidence and, you know, people at school. I think I would also rewrite that and get more vulnerable. I didn't want to, like, name drop anybody. I would never do that. Yeah. But I think if I had gotten a little bit more open in those parts, I would have liked it. So I think I would have rewritten those two sections.
Okay.
Yeah, looking back on it. Yeah.
Yeah. I asked that question because with putting videos out into the social media world, I'm constantly like, ooh, I wish I said that differently, or I wish I did that differently. Yes. So it's such an interesting thing to really publish things like once and for all for the public.
Definitely.
And then having that question of, well, I'm different today than I was then. And
it's kind of like when you have an argument with someone and then you wrap it up and then you think about it later and you're like, oh shit, I should have said this instead. Yeah, I definitely feel that. And I'm pleased with where it's at, but I think having experienced the growth since this came out and since I was writing, I would have gotten more vulnerable in certain ways.
Are there other forms of writing that you like to do, like blogs?
I thought about starting a blog. I made some freelance accounts and then just never did anything with it. I think having been in the marketing space for my 9-to-5, I learned a shit ton of stuff, content production in general. And I was writing a lot of technical blogs and ebooks, long form technical white papers, kind of boring stuff compared to like something like this, which is where my passion lies. But I constantly revisit it. I feel like I have such a creative space, but I kind of closed the door to it for a little while after this came out. Why that happened, I think I was just trying to find balance again. I kind of had to compartmentalize to move forward in my career that I wanted to do, but I feel like I've studied out and I would love to start a blog, like a lifestyle blog. My passion is definitely like self-care, wellness, just holistic health and mental health. Those are all things I love, and I love to make people feel confident, empowered, and like they can do anything. So even being in the mentor space, even if it's just written word online someone can pop into, I would love to be a part of that.
Do you have any other passions other than writing?
I've developed more of a stronger sense for the athletic field. Okay. Not really athletics, like I don't play soccer, I'm not playing lacrosse, but I loved yoga. That's how we met originally, through Caroline's classes. And I've just found a real sense of community in the athletic space. I don't know what you'd call it, fitness space? Yeah, wellness. I think that's one of my passions. I would definitely categorize that now. I also I love going to music events. I don't know if you'd call that a passion or not because I'm not playing an instrument or singing, but I love going I know that I've seen you in a couple of those.
Yeah.
You're always shuffling. So I love that. Passion, I'm actually signing up for a mentorship class coming up soon to learn more about what my passions are. I feel like it's something that should be obvious, and sometimes it isn't.
Yeah.
So those are ones definitely on the top of my head, but I want to learn more about myself to be able to find out more things.
Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah.
Do you have any?
My passions?
Yeah.
I love dancing. So music events too.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is part of my passion too.
Yeah.
Interviewing people and doing podcasts and even editing videos and getting really creative and fun with it.
Definitely. You have to have so much patience for that too.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness. So I really respect people who are so good at that, because I try sometimes and it just doesn't, for my day job.
Yeah.
Just the connecting piece too. Like I love listening to podcasts, taking walks, so this was really exciting to be part of this too.
And I think another part to this is I get to talk to people who want to inspire other people and kind of help improve the lives of these other people. I had another podcast with a person who did breath work, and he talked about that and all the benefits and everything. And as I was doing that, I was like, wow, like this information can really benefit someone.
100%.
So yes. I'm learning, but I also get to share with other people and hopefully provide value. That's like really what I want to do in this world, is just provide value.
Me too. I resonate with that. And I never wanted to make it out in the book that I knew 100% what I was doing. I put it very plainly out there many times that I'm imperfect, but one of my superpowers, if you were to call it, is the vulnerability piece. And I think because that's just kind of been built into my nature as a human being for so long, majority of my life, I would say, I've been able to connect, and I've had people tell me that I've really inspired them in a lot of ways. And I don't say that to make myself, feel bigger or get a big head. It just, that means a lot, that the connection that we're sharing is doing something for them and it's changing them in big or small ways. I know someone who was in their late 60s read the book and texted me saying that it gave her the confidence to try to reach out to her dad and reconnect with him. And she realized that time waits for no one, and he's getting older, she's getting older. And that day when she finished, she shot me that text and reached out to him, gave him a call for the first time in probably a couple of years is what she said. So that really spoke to me because, I didn't expect women in their late 60s to be moved by this. So to have her share that with me was everything.
That was amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Because it's that one person that you inspire. I've gotten stuff like that too. There's this one person in particular on Instagram who I know her personally, and she messaged me. She's like, I love seeing your spiritual journey and all this stuff. And then today she asked me a question that she said she's never asked anyone before because she never felt comfortable. And it's like just that one person, inspiring just one person is so moving.
Definitely. And I even have looked at your content that you put out. I love your polls, and I love how honest you are about even just being in the social media space and detoxing and, I don't know, kind of just living your truth and doing things that make you light up and make you feel good. And I follow you, and I love what you put out there. So I think that you have really nailed that as well, connecting with an audience.
Even if they
don't say it all the time.
Thank you really mean so much. Yeah, people don't really mention it that often. Yeah. And I really, I try to be as honest and vulnerable as possible because, like I've said, there's just so many people putting on a front and being fake, and it just creates unhappiness. And I don't want to be part of that.
Yes. It's hard to not get sucked into it. I feel like in my early college days especially, it was all about Instagram. You had to have the cool feed and the pictures. That's kind of what was circling me. People would get dressed up just to go take pictures out somewhere in public. And so I just felt kind of like a square peg going into a round hole. It just didn't feel right, but I would participate for sure. and it felt good to post and get that instant gratification.
Yeah.
But then as I got older, I realized it's kind of bullshit, and I don't want someone's like fake praise. Likes feel shallow in a way. And in a lot of my classes in college too, they were saying the best form of engagement, like for a brand, is commenting and shares and messages. It's not likes. Likes don't mean anything, is like what they were saying too. Put it into perspective for me.
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting for me to observe all my different posts and who comments on what. Like, it's like a different kind of post gets a different kind of person's attention, and it's one of those like psychologically interesting things
that is
that
super
I always
interesting.
observe.
Yeah, looking at all the patterns.
Yeah, I'm like,
So,
what got this person to comment on this post?
What would an example be? Anything recent that comes to mind?
So I just posted the one of me shuffling outside, and then this guy came up and was like, hey, like, are you famous on blah, blah, blah? And he's like, oh, I'm Snapchat famous. And then, like, a couple people posted, like, haha, like, Snapchat, like, he's playing, or, like, stuff like that. So it's just interesting to see how that got their attention.
Yeah. And that's what I was kind of striving for when I tried to create my Instagram author page. Just people to comment and engage rather than just like it. I feel like a like gets lost. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I was going to say something about going out just to take pictures to post on Instagram. And I can see myself posting stuff and then, like, looking at it and being like, how many likes did I get on this one?
Of course.
And even though I'm conscious and aware that I'm doing this, and I'm like, I don't need this external validation, it's like I still keep doing it. Like, it's just this psychological, it's so crazy.
It's a dopamine hit.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And I will own that. I did that for sure. Or, you know, something ended with a guy and you wanted to, like, hop on Instagram and flex. Like, that's what people do these days. It's a highlight reel. But I went a long period of time with a disabled Instagram account, and it was so crazy too because people would text me when I temporarily disabled it because they had those following apps, and they would say, why did you unfollow me on Instagram?
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
So people were getting upset, and I was like, I didn't. I just disabled my account, and it just kind of caused me to look at it a different way. I was putting way too much stock into social media.
Yeah. I feel very judgmental towards the people
online
who have apps that tell you who unfollow you.
I know.
But that's just not my world. And maybe if I was younger, I would have been in that age of wanting to know who was following and unfollowing me.
That I never did, but that's the reaction I got when I disabled my account.
Yeah.
Which I thought was so interesting. And it wasn't meant, of course, to offend anybody. It was for my own mental health.
Yeah.
And I preferred being offline.
And at least they asked you why.
Yeah.
Because they would have just been mad at you and had no idea.
Passive aggressive for no reason. Yeah, exactly.
So talking about your book, how would you summarize it?
So it's broken into 12 chapters. It's 4 parts. And it's kind of my own, I wouldn't call it a diary necessarily, but it's kind of a progression of stages that I experienced in my own life and kind of major themes of those stages. So I open it up talking about a super vulnerable event, and I just kind of take you through the process of the emotional maturity, major things that were happening around those pillars in my life as I grew up and continued to kind of peel back the layers to what I was experiencing, what I was feeling, and then kind of putting up a mirror image, taking a good look at myself and what was around me and if I wanted to kind of continue or not. So the whole book is kind of just an open season on my thoughts and feelings, but themes that we all deal with in our own life. Of course, the target demographic for this is someone around our age.
So as I was reading this book, there were so many moments when I was just like, oh my God, this is gold. Like, this sentence is pure intuition. So keeping in mind that I lost my mom too, you wrote on page 106, another thing many people may not realize about losing someone you love is that you lose versions of the people still around you. I've never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Because when you lose someone, I can't even, you actually just explain it perfectly in that sentence. everyone's different.
Definitely, and it's an inexplicable sense of loss, and it's hard to convey that feeling and that emotion to someone who hasn't experienced it. And even if I had lost my mom, and I could sit here and say, oh, I know how you feel, but I would never know how you truly feel. It's such an individual experience. And I was just having this conversation with a friend the other day. Grief is just, it's like all this love with nowhere to go. And I heard that said out loud. I don't know who said it first, but I really resonated with that. It's just all these feelings and all these memories and thoughts and hopes and dreams and devastation's just into one big jumbled mess. So you just learn how to live with it. And something I learned in my living with my grief was the people around me were affected too, and their personalities had changed. And especially, you know, parental figures. You know, I lost a sibling, but they lost a child, and that's completely different things. And I think that's something that's really overlooked in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
When people talk about grief.
Oh my gosh, wait, I loved this part. Emotional tears shedding actually stimulates the production of endorphins, the body's natural painkiller, and helps us heal. And I thought this was so amazing because there's been so many times I cry so hard, and then afterwards I'm like, wow, I feel amazing.
So much better, yeah. I feel like, of course, when I first lost my brother, I felt this wave of emotion that you feel, and I shed all the tears in the world. Then as I started to move through the 5 or 10 year mark of his loss, I was looking back on it, and I felt like I didn't cry that much. I felt like I really internalized a lot of my emotions. I had been in therapy, and, you know, I let out a good cry here and there, but it was never in front of other people. And so recently, like probably within the last couple of years, I have really worked at being more vulnerable with that specifically. And I find myself tearing up all the time at things.
Yeah.
And I never understood it. Like looking at older people like my mom or something, she would always cry at certain things or commercials or like little videos, anything heartfelt or sad, and I never got it. And now I'm getting it, and I'm way more in tune with my emotions and being open about them. I shed tears quite often.
Yeah.
It feels
so do
good.
I.
Yeah. It feels really good to do it. It doesn't feel good to hold on to it for me anymore.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have been taught to not feel their emotions.
It's easier in some ways, but it's a lot harder down the road if you just don't tap in.
Yeah.
We don't know what's coming our way, good, bad, and the ugly. And I found just in my experience, I feel so much better just releasing and surrendering to experiences. And if that means crying my eyes out or letting out a good scream or laughing until my stomach hurts, that's what I need to do. Emotion is a beautiful thing, but yeah, it's preached to us and taught, definitely more so for men, I think, too, personally. But don't let it out, don't feel it. It's easier to just kind of put your blinders on. But it didn't do any favors to me when I would try. So I've been really working on that, actually, personally, the last couple of years.
So when my mom passed away, I was left with my dad and my 2 brothers, who no one ever really expressed their emotions in a healthy way.
Yeah.
So there were definitely really intense emotions, but it was never healthy. So it got to the point of where, as I was getting older in my 20s, living alone, I'm like, I'm not happy. And the way that my emotions feel, there's got to be another way of living. There's got to be something different than what I've been taught my whole life.
Yeah. Where were you in that lineup of kids? Were you the oldest, middle child?
The youngest.
The youngest.
Yeah.
That must have been a tough place to be.
Yeah.
With all that masculine energy.
Yeah. And I cried the most. And I don't think anyone really understood it either. They're just like, she's crying again, kind of like in this way.
A question I have for you is, do you think that you possess more masculine energy or feminine energy?
I definitely possess more masculine energy.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the impression I gave other people. I was talking to Caroline about this actually the other day, and one of my goals was to really just tap into more of the feminine energetic side of myself, but I definitely carry way more masculine energy. And I think it really stems from an early childhood experience like that. Just learning to self-defend and kind of pick yourself up.
That makes a lot of sense. And the independence too.
Yeah. And it's almost, I've been like independent to a fault sometimes. I can be stubborn in the sense where I don't let people help or I can do it. When really it's just a lot easier to ask. So in my adulthood I've learned those lessons. But I'm always so curious what people would say and size themselves up as more feminine or masculine, because I know feminine energy when I see it. Like a lot of my good friends have it. But for people like us, like it can go both ways. But I just think that's something I was reflecting on in my own journal and stuff.
I find that it's so much easier for me to be in the masculine because I'm just like, I love doing stuff. I just want to get everything done, like, and I can do it all on my own. All this. And
an important distinction too I'd want to make is sometimes when people think like, okay, what even is feminine and masculine energy? We all possess some of it, either side of the coin. And just because you're like this independent person doesn't mean that feminine energetic people wouldn't have those traits. It's just, to me, femininity and the energy I see come from more people who harness that a little bit more. They're way more nurturing off the bat. I feel like they're definitely, they harbor more of a sense of community. They can be mothering at times, like in a really comforting, soft way. They aren't so like blunt or straightforward at times. They really know how to choose their words. Just that caring nature, I can think of a few friends that just really exude that, and it's just a blessing to be in their presence. They're so comforting, but at the same time, sometimes they don't stand up for themselves, or they just kind of beat around the bush, or whatever it may be. But for myself, I've noticed I'm way more direct. I will stick up for the little guy. I like my independence. So those are kind of just things I've kind of categorize them in my life, and I see examples of it all the time. So just so fascinating.
It's important to note that a beautiful person is allowed to be imperfect. I think imperfection is beautiful.
I think I wrote that with the things I've seen online in mind too, or the girl in everyone's high school that was just like the it girl or whatever it may be. I could see people in my own high school getting very envious of people like that, or just because somebody was beautiful, they thought they didn't have a reason to be upset or angry. It sounds so funny to say that out loud, but I see that, even at work, in an adult setting, people will look at people and think, oh, well, they have it all. What do they have to complain about? What do they have to be sad about? Everyone's entitled to feeling their emotions and allowing those imperfections to come to the surface. I think if we hold people under a microscope, it can get a little bit too intense and it doesn't feel very good. So I think I just wrote that reflecting on the people who are put on a pedestal and expected to live up to a certain standard. It's deep, but that's what I was thinking.
I love it. We need to be so fucking proud of who we are that no one's judgment or opinion of us can cause us to waver from our truest selves.
I agree. It doesn't even sound like that's me. Sometimes when you're reading these lines, it's like I'm reading someone else's book. It's really cool. It's cool to hear. I still stand by that statement. I think that that's super important.
I think that's true power, is when you don't care what anyone thinks of you and you're in your own authentic self.
And it's not to say, you don't care about other people's feelings. It's just you are in your zone, and if you have good intentions and you're being yourself, that's all you can do. And to hell with everybody else. Otherwise, really.
So throughout this book, Jenn gives suggestions of write down lists of gratitude, write down, I think, passions and things that you do really well and things that you don't do really well. Things that I love about myself.
You're not going to share them?
I just read one of those. I can share a couple.
You did the homework.
I did. I never do book homework.
Love.
But this time I was like, I'm interviewing Jenn, so I'm doing it all. I love my hair.
Yes, you have beautiful hair.
I love my smile. I love my highs and my lows. I think as I was writing this, I was learning to love myself even when I was depressed, or even when I was sad, or even when I thought I was ugly. Just loving everything that I hate about myself.
Yes.
So it's just like loving the hate.
It's just kind of radical self-acceptance.
Yes. Is so powerful.
Yeah.
And it's something that I just realized like less than a year ago.
I'm really impressed that you realize that. It takes a lot of people a long time to realize that. And even when I had that realization, sometimes it's hard to maintain day to day.
Absolutely, yeah.
It can be really hard.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that I'll never have hard times loving myself.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll happen. But to even have that awareness that it's possible to love yourself in your lows I'm so grateful. I'm really, really grateful for that one.
It's such a unique perspective too, because it's exciting to see and to meet the person you'll become in the next 5-10 years. It's like making a new friend. So when I've had days that it's been hard to accept even those parts of myself that I don't love and that I'm trying to work on, but they keep creeping out, it just, okay, this won't be a thing forever, or if it is, let's see how this new friend will handle it, because you're always leveling up. So yeah, the radical self-acceptance is something I've really tried to focus on this year as well. It hasn't gone great sometimes, but I'm working on it. It's a work in progress, always.
Yeah. You know, something I was just thinking about, and this is something I do, I don't think I've ever told anyone this or talked about it, but when I think about dating a new guy, sometimes I have conversations in my head like, oh, like if I was on a date right now, what would we be talking about, or what would I say? And something that I've thought about recently was how, like I go through lows and I get depressed and sad and I pull away from people and I make up stories in my head, and then it's sometimes really difficult for me to confront that person and like tell them what I'm thinking because I believe the story, and usually it's not true. But all in all, I'm always getting better. And after every low that I have, I'm a better person.
Always.
And it's like I have this deeper love for myself and so much more respect for myself. And I feel more confident coming into a relationship with someone.
Yeah.
I hope I'm explaining it well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's profound that you shared that, so thank you. I mean, it's just kind of knowing yourself a little bit deeper and kind of knowing that you're going to be there for you no matter what kind of happens.
Yeah.
I experience that too. I mean, it's 1% better every day, but every time there's a low, especially like if we use the example of dating, there's always something to walk away from and learn. Yeah. It's just, if something doesn't go well or it ended, I feel that same way. Okay, that wasn't fun, and I probably should have done this, and this, or I wish I did this, and this, and I wish they did this, whatever the case may be, but I'm walking away, so the next opportunity, the next person, I'm going to be showing up as a better version of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and are you dating anyone right now?
No.
Me neither.
I'm going on a date tomorrow, but I just met him, so like okay, I'm not like dating.
Yeah.
But I honestly, I have not even thought about dating for months. I was like, I'm just gonna edit videos. Like, I don't need this.
Head down.
But I feel like I needed to remove myself from the dating scene so that I can love myself deeper and really respect myself.
This is why I love conversations like this, because I'm in that phase right now. I felt literally the same exact thing, where I'm in a space where I just would rather work on my relationship with me and then let the chips fall where they may in time. But when I come out of this like hibernation period, if you want to call it, I'll be a better partner to somebody.
Exactly.
So it's a win-win in my book.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be taxing, especially if you're not in a good space mentally, like self-wise, to try and date. It can be even more consuming, and it's already challenging enough sometimes.
Yeah. And I feel like with my energy, I'm so motivated, I'm so inspired, I'm so like, let's create and do and bring value. I'm like seeking this guy who can match me, and I'm like, where are they?
Oh, we're very alike. I'm sitting here, it's like, does she? Well, she read my innermost thoughts, so yeah, you know me well from that stance. Yeah, I find that too. I also found it really interesting as it pertains to the book. At one point, it was on my Hinge profile, and it wasn't like, oh, look at me, I wrote this book. It was like 2 truths and a lie or something, or like, believe it or not, like I published my first book. Half the responses were, oh my God, so cool, congratulations, where can I get it? The other half were, what gives you the right to write a book? What experience or expertise do you have to write a book? Give me a free copy and then I'll let you know how it is. That was the split.
Wow.
So I found that really interesting. And even in person, like talking to guys at bars or even Uber drivers, it would come up somehow, especially in the wake of like the publishing date. And again, it was that same dichotomy of responses. It was always either so pumped, good for you, or who do you think you are for writing this?
Yeah.
And so it just made me think of that because of course the guys in bucket A who were cheering me on were just like so much more attractive to me because they weren't intimidated by anything, and they also shared stories of feeling motivated, and they could celebrate like a win for me even if they hadn't done like their big thing or whatever it was. Nothing really got that far, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And then the other guys, it was like I couldn't even mention it without them feeling intimidated or having them say something back in like a negative way.
Wow.
Yeah. Something I noticed, and I eventually took it off my hand. Well, I'm not even on dating apps right now, but yeah, it was either one or the other.
It's so interesting. I have 2 thoughts on that, and I
Yeah.
hope I can remember both of them. The first one is, it's so beautiful to put yourself out there like that and to hear people's responses because it clearly shows you who you want to be around.
Swipe left or swipe right.
Yeah,
whatever
just
it is.
very clear.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say about that was how these people who respond, like, who are you to... I'm always so curious. What does their life look like? Like, what are they doing?
What have you done? Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt, I don't know what I was expecting by putting that on my Hinge. I just thought it was such a cool thing that made me kind of stand out.
It is a cool thing.
Yeah, it is a cool
Yes.
thing. God damn it. Yeah. And it was really awesome when guys would really support it. And But then others were like, oh, give me a free copy. I'll tell you how it is. I would just send them the Amazon link. It's like, you can buy one if you want. Like, if you're going to be a dick, might as well give me some money for it. Yeah. But yeah, I just, in the dating sense, this even played a role in kind of weeding out people, depending on their response. It's super telling.
Wow.
It's kind of like friends who, like, secretly wish that you'll fail. Like, you can kind of tell who those people are.
Yeah.
So it's been a good tool in my toolbox in the world of dating, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you had friends that you felt like they secretly wish you would fail?
Yeah.
I've never felt like I had those people. Like, I've had friends who don't like hype me up and support me and aren't like super like, oh my God, that's amazing, you're doing that. You know, they kind of just like do their own thing, and like, I think they're just a little more fearful of stepping up and traveling and all this stuff. But I've never felt like anyone was like, wow, I wish Lonnie would fail.
I think it hasn't been very often, but I can remember people, probably a handful of people, where I just felt that they were being very disingenuous, or they were staying close to me for information about what I was up to, what I was doing, who I was talking to, and then would weaponize it later. And growing up, you know, and this goes way back, in middle school, I really was a recipient of a lot of bullying, and some of those girls were like my closest friends at one point. So that really stuck with me, and I just learned to kind of identify it. I really try not to surround myself with people like that at all. I'm getting better each year as time passes, kind of learning who I want around me and who I don't. But yeah, I don't share. I feel like for a while I felt like I couldn't share my wins with the people that were around me because it just didn't feel like they really gave a shit or they were really rooting for me. I feel like your friend should be those people who would mention your name in a room full of opportunity. And I just really for a long time felt like I didn't have that in my life. Yeah.
How was that in college?
College was tough making friends. I mean, I moved from New Hampshire, so I didn't know anybody here. I was by myself. And so it ebbed and flowed making friends. Like, I feel like in the early days of college too, it was just a revolving door of people. Everyone's trying to make friends. Everyone's trying to find where they would fall into. Yeah. And I rushed. I talk about that in the book. And it ultimately wasn't for me, but I've met a lot of people, some of whom I'm still really close with. But girls I found in school, everyone kind of had a different set of priorities, and I felt for a while I just didn't kind of mesh with a lot of the ones I met, especially freshman year. Very few I talked to this day. It got better as the years progressed, but it's even changed since then. You know, my senior year compared to my sophomore year was completely different friend-wise, so yeah, it's one of those things where I just kind of surrendered though and like let things spread apart if they needed to. I wasn't going to hold too tight because if it needed to disperse, that's kind of what was better. But making friends in the beginning was easier because everyone wanted to make friends, but it was way harder to maintain friendships.
I have a really good question.
Yes.
All right. This is for anyone who may be watching this. In particular, any girl who may be watching this and you might feel like your friends aren't your friends or they're not rooting for you or you just feel like something's off. What would you tell them? And say maybe they're in college and they're like popular and they don't feel like they can really let go of these people. What advice would you tell them?
Such a good question. I think the advice I would give is first and foremost, listen to your gut. Your gut has amazing insight to who you are and what you need, even if you're not exactly tuned in. So work hard to tune in and listen because that feeling is being emoted for a reason and your thoughts and feelings are valid. Second, I would say if you really do feel like you're in a room with people who secretly would wish you would fail or they weren't your genuine friends, there's no easy way around it. Sometimes I think it just comes down to being courageous enough and being a little bit brave to take the first step to step outside. You don't have to disband. There doesn't have to be this huge fight. It doesn't have to be this big negative blow up that sometimes you might think might have to happen. You can instill gradual separation for your own sanity. And those people, if you can't connect in conversation, you think you're repeating the same script over and over and over again with friends, it's surface level. Take a good look at the environment in which you're trying to connect. Are you only connecting if you're drinking and partying? Are you only hanging out if you're going to a concert but you're not hanging out just on your couch watching TV? If you're going through this checklist and these things, you're nodding your head like, yeah, that's me, I feel like I don't have any real, genuine, authentic friendships, you're not alone, but you have to be brave enough to kind of start to step outside of that. And what I found really helpful for me was I chose to pursue passion. So for example, I met a lot of my great friends by going to yoga classes. I wanted to go and put myself in an environment where people there were there for a reason and they were there because they loved it. And you can't force things, but gradually these connections start to form and you guys have a shared bond already, and it's not in like a drunken party setting. And you know, believe me, I had a lot of fun partying here and there and like still like it, but there are those different kinds of friendships. So if you're really feeling alone, you got to make that checklist for yourself. Again, the homework, like make a list and the type of people you want around you and really take that first step to kind of move outside of those lines that you've been confided in, and amazing things will happen if you step outside the box. It just takes a little bit of courage to do so. That would be my advice. Don't be afraid.
Yay, you got this.
Everyone goes through it at certain points.
Yeah. I feel like in my world, I never experienced that to an extent. Like, I feel like I've always had people around me who I loved and we really connected on a deep, deep level. But I also realize and acknowledge that there are people in this world who don't have deep connections.
Mm-hmm. And when I say I feel like everyone kind of experiences it, it's just that you're trying to think of, okay, are these my homies? Like, are these my friends for life? Like, everyone kind of plays that tape in their head. Yeah. These girls are going to be here forever, or these guys, whatever it may be. So making friends is a universal experience. We all go through it. It's been challenging at different phases in our life when we were little to now, especially if you work remotely and you have little to no, like, in-person contact with people. You feel like your friend group is the only space you have that happening in. Yeah, it can be intimidating, but I found when I slowly started to take the steps, the best people were brought to me because I just got clearer on who I wanted to be friends with, like what type of friends I needed in my life and who I wanted to be around. Mm-hmm. Like-minded individuals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you believe that your brother is with you?
I do. My mom is very spiritual.
Yeah.
And she had seen a couple of mediums in the past, and her experiences were very, very unique in the sense that there was absolutely no fucking way that they would have known this, really intimate details. And so I take comfort in that. She was also selected out of an arena full of people at one of those big reading shows. I have gone with her for a few times. I've never gone to a specific medium reading. But I went to her with one of those arena shows. I was like, why not? What can hurt? If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And he never came through for me. I've spoken to an intuitive before, and she just is kind of more like a spiritual mentor and just kind of helps me stay grounded and kind of just helps me reflect on my life. And she's amazing. She's kind of like that cool, crazy aunt that everybody has or you wish you have, kind of like a Phoebe from Friends.
Yeah.
And she has made statements just kind of saying, he's watching over you, but I think that he has moved on. In my personal opinion, I think that he has gone into the light, whatever that is for him, and he has found peace on the other side. I don't feel like he's with me all the time.
Okay.
I feel like he protects me and is definitely keeping watch over my family, but I haven't had a super profound experience where I was like, oh, that's Evan in the room.
Okay.
Truthfully.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel
like
your mom is with you?
I do feel like she's with me, and I do feel like she's crossed over, but even when they do cross over, they can still be with us.
Yes.
And guide us, and we can talk and communicate and ask questions and stuff.
Definitely. I mean, I will talk out loud to him, but I feel like maybe I was thinking that if I felt him with me, it would have been more of a real, true, raw feeling, and maybe that's just not it. And I think it just kind of depends on, my mom might feel something different, I don't know, and I believe that he's at peace and he does stay with my family, but aside from one dream I've never had him in a dream. For 15 years, I only had one dream.
What was
that
the
he
dream?
was in it the night after he died. And ever since then, he's never appeared in a dream again. Yeah. Which is kind of crazy, because it's not like I stopped thinking about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the dream was, I think it was the night that he had passed that I found out, on the 10th of May. And I remember it so clearly. It was on the street I used to live on growing up in New Hampshire. So it was this small suburb, and the street was very straight with houses lining on the side, very short. My house was on the right-hand side. It was yellow, big yard, not too big, kind of teeny, long driveway. And I was out on the main road right in front of my house on a bike, and he was helping me ride the bike, teaching me how to ride it. And we got to a certain point halfway down that road, and he just kind of came out from behind me and stood in front of me and just mouthed the words, "I'm sorry." I could not hear his voice. and then I watched him walk off down the road, and I was trying to pedal on my bike, and then he just disappeared. And I woke up and I had dried tears on my face, and I've never seen him in a dream since then.
Wow. Oh.
Yeah.
That reminds me of a part in your book when you talked about forgiveness.
Yeah.
And how you literally had to forgive everyone, like your parents, your brother for taking the drugs, the people who gave him the drugs.
Yes.
Everyone at school, like you just had to forgive everyone.
Yeah, even if I felt like they didn't deserve it at times, it just was the more peaceful path.
Yeah, for you.
Yeah.
It's for you.
And it's something I work on. It's definitely not, it doesn't come overnight, but it was just, I had no choice in the stage I was in.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the only dream he's ever been in since he died.
Wow.
And I just think that's profound. Because lots of times, like, people will say, you know, oh, I saw my grandma came to me in my dream, or, you know, I saw this. And I love that for them, but I feel like for a certain amount of time I was waiting, and he never came. And so, yeah, still, it's been 15 years, and that was the only time. So that's kind of what makes me think he's kind of moved past. Of course, he hasn't forgotten me. I haven't forgotten him, but, you know, I'm at the point where I don't remember what his voice sounded like, and I just have to kind of draw upon these very few memories that I had as a young girl with him, you know, and then the rest was kind of fill in the blanks from people's stories, and kind of just trying to interpret maybe the person he would have been if he hadn't died so young. Yeah. So, yeah, I think I'm protected, but I don't feel his presence very strongly in my day-to-day.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, thank you for answering.
Sorry to make you cry.
Oh, no, it was a sweet, like, it was just one of those that's really sweet. Where can people reach you if they want to talk about your book or anything?
They can reach me probably on my Instagram would be the best. It's private.
Okay.
But I do have a public one. So my private one is at Jenn Schwager, JENNSCHWAGER. And then my public one for my author account, it's not as active, but it's at Jenn Schwager, same spelling, and then author. So just Jenn Schwager author is probably the best. And I'm also on LinkedIn if anyone feels the need to reach out on LinkedIn. That's under Jennifer Schwager, though.
And I will also link the book again up here for you to buy from Amazon. Is there anything you want to say? Anything else before we end?
I just really wanted to thank you for having me. This was my first time that I've really been asked in depth about my project, and it just really means a lot that you even took the time to buy it and support and read and mark it up. And I am so, so grateful and touched that you took things away. That was the one thing that I wanted, even like we talked about earlier, if it's just one person. So thank you so much. And then what I would say to anyone who's watching is don't be scared. Take the first step. Nothing is impossible. I'm not where I want to be yet, and I still have a long way to go, and I have all these goals that I have and I want to hit, but taking that first step, it took me here. So don't be afraid, and don't be afraid to be vulnerable either. I think that's a superpower, most definitely. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.